The Barclays era was when the Premier League was sponsored by Barclays. It's regarded as a real chaotic golden period, and we will never see another era like that again. 4-4-2, two up front who couldn't pass, but they die for you. Aguero with the last minute title winner. Emmanuel Adebayor running the length of the pitch to celebrate in front of Arsenal fans. Chang beer over steak. Stoke vs Bolton in the wet, and the ball's probably in play for about 20 minutes. Every goal was either a 30-yard rocket or inexcusable goalkeeper mistake. It felt like players had more personality, celebrating every goal like it was their first. We all hold nostalgia to this era, and there's always that argument that football was better back then. But I read this article the other day and it kind of got me thinking. Essentially, it debates the idea that the Barclays era wasn't actually that good compared to today's game. We only feel this way because it was the era we grew up watching, and due to nostalgia or rosy retrospection, we completely overrate the Barclays in our heads. Today, I want to find out if this is actually true. I want to look at both sides and come up with a verdict of which era was actually better, the Barclays era or today's Premier League football. So really, what made the Barclays era? Who are the players held in such nostalgia? Because I think it's the expression of character that really made this time period. Rory Delap joined Stoke when he was 30 years old. He'd done a bit at Southampton and Sunderland, but he had never really made a name for himself until he got to Stoke. Tony Pulis puts him in at Stoke, and they find out apparently he can throw the ball as if it came out of a cannon. I'd say that probably sums up why he's Barclays, but for the sake of video length, I'm gonna keep talking. It wasn't his vision or actual footballing skills that anyone really cared about. It was just his ability to throw the ball real far. To be fair, it won them games. I think the best example of this was November 2008. Arsenal started the season well and wanted to maybe push on for a title charge until they played Stoke. Rory Delap created 2 goals from long throws, one in the 11th minute and then in the 73rd, put the game to bed. That same season, Stoke had 9 goals from Delap long throws, so 24% of their goals came from long throws. So it actually was a really big reason why they stayed up that year. And I think the best part about it was how he'd clearly take the piss a bit too. He'd take his time, grab a towel, try the ball, and teams had to start defending his long throws like actual corners because functionally kind of was one. And this past season, long throws have made a bit of a comeback. I mean, I remember early on last season, Chelsea, we drew to Brentford because of a long throw in stoppage time. But now I just don't think it's as funny. It feels more of a product of over-optimization than anything. Next, JJ Okocha, coming to Bolton from PSG in 2002. Bolton at the time was managed by Allardyce, who's known for playing very direct, physical football, the type of football you need to play in a relegation scrap. Yet Bolton signed JJ Okocha on a free, who is really just flair personified, pulling out step overs, drag backs in his own box for no real reason except the fact he could do it. In April 2003, in the midst of a relegation battle at home against West Ham, he picks up the ball from inside his own half, glides off his defender and slaps at top bins to win the game 1-0. Or against Villa in the League Cup semi, he scored 2 free kicks to win the game, with one of them just disgusting outside the boot into the near post. Really did half this shit for the sake of it. Like against Arsenal, it was 2-2 in added time where he's got it in the corner. Obviously, most players would hold the ball in this situation. Though he was great and fun to watch, what I think makes this, he wasn't actually that good. He has less goal involvements than Garnacho in more games. Yet just the way he went about his football makes him so loved. He is the epitome of individual talent. Did he fit the system at Bolton? Probably not. Next, I wanted to mention Jimmy Bullard. He did his stints around English football and he was practically held together by tape. But I wanted to mention his time at Hull. It was Boxing Day in 2008 where Hull were down 4-0 to City at the half. Manager Phil Brown didn't bring his players in. Instead, he sat them down on the pitch to rip into them, which is such a gimmick. But a year later, Hull are playing City again, where Jimmy Bullard scores a penalty that brings the game level. Where for his celebration, he sits down his team and starts wagging his finger, clearly mocking the team talk they had just a year ago. It's regarded as one of the best celebrations in Premier League history, and in fairness, Phil Brown loved it. I think I say this to just emphasize the type of personalities back then were a lot more celebrated in a kind of way. Then we had Peter Crouch, 6'7" forward, that was still one of the most technically gifted players of that era. And with all due respect, he was a really uncanny looking 6'7" with quite literally the longest arms and legs I've ever seen. Like obviously you look at him and expect target man, someone who could just hold up the ball. Yet he could bicycle kick, He could dribble through your team and slot it in the corner. I mean, we have Stoke versus City in 2012, where the ball drops just outside the box, where he keeps it up and puts it away in the corner. One of the greatest goals in Premier League history. Or even his hat-trick for Liverpool against Arsenal in 2007, where he scored with his right for the first, header for the second, and left for his third. And he kept playing football until he was 38. He became the oldest player to score 100 Premier League goals, scoring his 100th at Everton when he was 36. Yakubu, or just the Yak. And it's interesting because the whole Barclaysman trend that was on Twitter and TikTok really started because of him. He was as slow as anything, missed a lot of sitters, but somehow always came through. He became Everton's record signing in 2007, which was £11 million from Borough. He takes a number 22 because that's his target he sets himself in all competitions. He goes on and scores 11 minutes into his debut at Bolton, and in December, he scores a hat-trick against Fulham. He does end the season with 21 goals, so he falls short, but still very impressive numbers. In December 2011, he scored 4 goals in a 4-2 win over Swansea. And a few years before that at Borough, against Chelsea, the ball breaks to him, prime Terry right in front of him. He goes straight at him and slots a pass check like he's not even there. He ended his Premier League career with 95 goals, genuinely great numbers at clubs that were never really challenging for anything. Really was a genius when it came to poaching in the 6-yard box and made a career out of it. And I guess what I'm emphasizing at this point is the fact that these players were able to make a career out of just pure expression of their play style or character. And that speaks very loudly about this era. I think such an advantage about the Barclays era is players had a lot more freedom. Due to the constant mistreatment and abuse a lot of footballers receive today from either traditional media or social media, players have become very much reclusive and introverted, which of course makes sense. If a player has a shit game today in this day and age, they're getting AI'd all over Twitter, or they show a bit too much personality on the pitch. Traditional media is right on their back. I think Jude, even though he's not in the Prem, I think Jude Bellingham right away. But now I wanted to look at how the game is played today compared to back then. Has football really gotten worse and more boring? Because today football in the Premier League is regarded as a chess match, with teams holding possession in their own third for the sake of analytics, and the idea of going for a dig 30 yards out isn't really a thing anymore. So there was a piece done, which I will link, that compares the Barclay era to today in terms of statistical data. So firstly, looking at goals scored in the Premier League by year. As we can see, clearly the Premier League has gotten far more attacking in recent years. Goals are being scored at a much higher rate. There's often this idea thrown around too that the Premier League doesn't have the stars it used to in terms of goal scorers, like a Suarez or Thierry Henry just shits on your Isaacs or your Mbuemos, which almost kind of holds, because we can see on this graph that by year, Golden Boot winners have only had a slight increase in goals scored in the current era, yet like we just saw, goals per game have increased at a much higher rate. So you could honestly probably conclude ever so slightly that goal scorers in the Barclays era were definitely a bit more prolific. But here's where it gets a lot more interesting. Where are the goals being scored from? I think we were very fond of the amount of screamers scored back then, but were there actually more screamers? Well, yeah, I think obviously a lot more. I think that is also mainly attributed to the rise in analytics dictating how teams set up. With XG and everything, teams have kind of understood that creating higher quality chances leads to more goals, which has kind of been proven because there are more goals. And I feel like that's a very obvious thing to say, actually. But like we said, the Barclays era was a lot more reliant on individual brilliance. 6'7" blokes doing keepy-ups and booting it from outside the box. But what era was more competitive? Was the league more competitive in the Barclays era or today? As we can see here, the league has become a bit less competitive in this era. However, I feel like a lot of that can be attributed to the dominance of Pep's Man City over the past few years. And this has and will come down to earth a bit. You can even see in this graph that the league has not drastically changed in terms of competitiveness as well. Both eras have had teams come out of nowhere and qualify for Europe. Like back then you had Portsmouth and Bolton. Now you have Bournemouth and Brighton. So honestly, I don't think it's less competitive than it used to be. Arguably, the league is the highest quality it's ever been. In the late Barclays era, so 2012 to 2016, the Prem had a coefficient ranking, placing them behind Spain and Germany. And even as well, England at the time were at a real risk of losing their 4th UCL spot. Today, the coefficient ranking is at 103.8, almost 20 points ahead of second place. So in total, looking at everything, has the actual football gotten worse. And to me, honestly, I think it's what you prefer. Would you rather have individual brilliance where one player dribbles through half the team and places it from 30 yards out? Or do you want more of a chess match with maybe more goals, but every subtle change in movement could completely flip the game? In my opinion, I think there's value in both. Both should be appreciated. And it's not like there's a complete absence of individual brilliance. I mean, we still have Liam Delap. I also do think another big aspect lost in the changing of eras is the fact that there's not as much atmosphere. Premier League stadiums were renowned for their intensity. And recently, I don't think that's as much of the case. A big factor to this, I think, is just the commercialization of the Premier League. Immediately, I think West Ham, but even City have moved stadiums which were originally very rooted in their communities and history. And even then, a lot of stadiums now are named after corporations. As well, the rise of ticket prices has definitely priced out a lot of match-going fans to cater for more of a global audience. Therefore, individuals who brought the atmosphere just simply can't attend as often. And those seats are being filled by people who view the Premier League more as a tourist attraction. So yeah, let me know what you think. That was my little dive on the Premier League. Clearly not English. Imagine I experienced this era a lot differently to how most of you experience this. I didn't get to go to games. I didn't have match of the day. And maybe for that fact alone, I can't romanticize the era as much as others. Football simply just wasn't readily available. Obviously, I still loved it, but it was set an alarm at 2 a.m. and watch the games that I really wanted to watch.